Hi friends, welcome to WQLN Homeroom. My name is Miss Brittany, and one reason I love teaching is because I am able to ignite a spark of learning in each one of your minds. Now today we are going to get to talk about bears, but not stuffed bears. We're going to talk about real life bears, but we're actually going to get to observe why bears hibernate in the winter. So observe means we actually get to see it with our eyes, okay? So we're gonna get to use our eyes, and that's gonna help us to explain why bears hibernate in the wintertime. Now you might be asking, what does hibernate mean? Hibernate is when animals sleep for long periods of time during the winter season. Now, we get to figure out why that is. Let's begin. All right, before we observe why bears hibernate, let's think about bears in our minds. Okay, so what color comes to mind when you think of a bear? I want you to think about it in your head. What color do you think bears are? What color do you remember seeing bears? Okay, I want you to come up with at least one or two. If you can get to three, that's awesome. All right, so you're thinking those in your mind. Okay, you got them? Good. All right, now I'm gonna count down from 5, and then you're gonna tell me what colors. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome job, guys. So I could have heard brown, I could have heard white, or even black. Great job, guys. All right, so now I want you to think of different kinds of bears. What kinds of bears have you heard of before? All right, so I want you to think of those in your mind. Maybe you can come up with 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4. Let's see. Okay, think about those. All right, I'm gonna count down from 5, and then I want you to shout out what kinds of bears you can think of. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job, guys. So you could have thought of a polar bear, a panda bear, a grizzly bear, or even a black bear. Awesome job, guys. Okay, so we have to set the record straight. I know everyone thinks, or most people think, that bears hibernate all winter long, but that's actually not true. Bear cubs are born during the winter time, so the mama cubs have to get up and they have to take care of their babies and feed their babies. But it is true, a bear can sleep or hibernate for up to 8 months. Now that is a very, very long time to sleep. Okay, before we begin our lesson, I want you to tell me, what does hibernate mean? Okay, I want you to think, what does hibernate or hibernation, what do those mean? All right, I'm going to count down from 5, and I want you to say those words out loud. Okay, what is the definition of hibernate or hibernation? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. So it means sleep for a really long time, especially in the winter. Good job, guys. Before we begin our observation part of our lesson, we're going to talk about the characteristics of bears. So that means we're going to talk about what bears can do or have, what they have, and what they are. All right, let's start. So I have a chart here that we're going to look at. And the first thing it is the can. So this is what bears can have or can do. All right, so the first thing says bears can be 7 feet tall. That means they can be taller than a door frame when they're standing up on their hind legs, which means that they're standing up like a person. That is really tall. All right, our next one is they can weigh up to 700 pounds. That is really, really heavy. It also says that bears can hibernate in dens all winter long, which we just talked about, that bears can live or sleep in their dens for up to 8 months. So that's almost all winter long. Now, bears can eat 90 pounds of food each day. So that's a lot of food that they have to eat to keep their bodies functioning with high energy. All right, so that is what bears can do or bears can have. Now we are going to talk about what bears have. Alrighty, so bears have thick fur. That thick fur keeps them warm in the winter times, and that way they are going to not freeze. So especially when it gets super, super cold. Bears also have babies in the winter. So the mama cubs don't get to sleep all winter long, all those 8 months. They have to get up and they have to take care of their babies. Bears also have long claws for digging, and their claws can be up to 9 inches long. That is super long. And the reason that bears' claws are so long is so that they can dig in the dirt. They can either dig their dens or even dig to look for food. All right, now we're gonna talk about what bears are. Now, there's gonna be some words that we're gonna go over. So bears are warm-blooded. That means that their body temperature is warmer than their environment. They're also mammals. So humans are also mammals. Then they are also omnivores. So omnivores means that they can eat leaves or grass, and they can also eat meat. Now there's some different foods that bears can eat. So they can eat berries, they can eat nuts, they can eat leaves, they can eat fruit, they can also eat fish or small animals. Now the last thing is a crazy fact. It says that bears are the largest meat-eating animal that lives on the land. So that doesn't mean the whole earth, because earth is made up of water and land, but of the land. So I hope you learned some fun characteristics about bears. So let's get on to our observation part of our lesson. All right, we are gonna sing a song about hibernation and bears. It goes to the tune of Do You Know the Muffin Man? Give me a thumbs up if you've ever sang Do You Know the Muffin Man? Awesome, if you haven't, it's okay. We are going to learn it together. Okay, so the song goes like this. Do you know who hibernates, who hibernates, who hibernates? Do you know who hibernates? It's great bears. Okay, so now we're gonna do that together. We're gonna sing it line by line. So the first line goes, do you know who hibernates, who hibernates, who hibernates? All right, now it's your turn. Ready, set, go. Do you know who hibernates, who hibernates, who hibernates? Good, all right, our second verse says, do you know who hibernates? All right, ready? Now it's gonna be your turn. Ready, set, go. Do you know who hibernates? Good job. All right, on our third line just says, it's great bears. All right, now it's your turn. Ready, set, go. It's great bears. Good job. Okay, let's put all of those verses together and sing our song. Okay, ready, set, go. Do you know who hibernates, who hibernates, who hibernates? Do you know who hibernates? It's great bears. All right, y'all are doing an awesome job. Let's try it one more time. Okay, here we go. Do you know who hibernates, who hibernates, who hibernates? Do you know who hibernates? It's great bears. Awesome job, guys. Y'all did great, and I hope that song will help you remember that bears hibernate. All right, so now on to the observation part of our lesson. So we're gonna get to see why bears hibernate. All right, but before we do that, let's talk about why bears hibernate. So the reason that bears hibernate is because the food source is really, really scarce or low. So that means that bears are not able to find a lot of food. So to keep from starving, they sleep for long periods of time. So the reason that the bears need to sleep is because if they're looking for food that's frozen or maybe not even there, then they're burning up their energy. So when bears eat a lot of food, they have a thick layer of fat. Now, that fat starts to go away whenever they're running around looking for food. But if they sleep, they actually will keep their fat for longer periods of time. Now, to show this, I'm going to use 2 jars. They're the same jars. They're clear so you can see inside of them, and a stick of butter. So each jar is going to get some butter, the same amount, and we're going to have a hibernation bear and we're going to have an awake bear, and we're going to see what happens with those 2 jars. All right, so to observe how bears hibernate, we're going to use our 2 jars, and I put butter, about a little bit of butter in each jar, about the same amount, and that is going to represent our fat or our energy that is in our bodies. But for this, it's our bears. So Our hibernating bear, he's just gonna sit still. He's gonna hang out because he's sleeping. Now our awake bear, he's gonna start moving because he's gonna be looking for food. Remember, our food is very scarce, so that means there's not a lot to be found. So I'm just gonna start moving our bear. He's looking for his food. He might have to climb a mountain or maybe even up a tree. He might have to go into the river or to the lake, and it might be frozen, so then he really can't get to the fish or the animals that live in the water. All right, so he's gonna be moving, and while he's moving, he's burning up that fat or that energy, and that means he won't have a lot of energy left. So if he is burning up that energy, it's gonna all be used. Now, if he uses all of his energy, what do you think will happen? What do you think is gonna happen to our bear if he loses all of his energy? Right, so if he's moving and he loses all of his energy, that means he's gonna stop, and that means he's not gonna be able to look for more food. So he could starve. So he has to keep moving and looking for food because he wants to find something to eat. All right, so I'm gonna take a break really quickly, and I'm gonna show you. See how the butter is on the glass? That's because it's melting and it's starting to stick to the jar. So I'm gonna move him some more and let him try to find some more food, but it's not looking like he's gonna have any luck. All right, so as you see, the butter is melting. So I'm gonna keep shaking for a little bit. Shake, shake, shake. All right, so I've been shaking for a little bit, so that way we can see if our butter is going to melt. So let's see how our awake bear is doing. So as you can see, that butter has kind of gotten all over the jar, so that means it's being melted and it's burned up. So that means that our bear isn't gonna last very long looking for food. Now let's check out our hibernating bear. As you can see, his butter might have melted a little bit, but not a lot. So our hibernating bear is going to be able to stay longer and sleep longer because he's not moving or using up his energy. So animals need energy to live. So all that fat that's stored up, that was all represented by our butter, is how animals are able to move and how they're able to have energy. So now I want us to do an experiment with ourselves. So I need you to stand up. All right. Okay, so get your running arms ready. Okay, we're gonna run in place. All right, we're gonna run in place and we are gonna use up some of our stored energy. All right, run, 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 run. Good, good, keep it going, keep it going. All right, and freeze. Okay, so a couple of us might be taking some deep breaths because we're getting tired because we just used up the energy that's inside of us. So by running around and using up our energy, we have burned some fat that's stored in our body, or our energy that's stored in our body. So that shows how when bears run around looking for food, they get tired and they start using up all of their energy. All right, so now we are going to read a book about bears hibernating. It is called Bears Snores On by Karma Wilson and Jane Chapman. Let's get started. Bears Snores On by Karma Wilson and Jane Chapman. In a cave in the woods, in his deep, dark lair, through the long, cold winter, sleeps a great brown bear. Cuddled in a heap with his eyes shut tight, he sleeps through the day and he sleeps through the night. The cold winds howl and the night sounds growl, but bear snores on. An itty bitty mouse, pitter pat, tiptoe, crawls in the cave from the fluff cold snow. Mouse squeaks, too damp, too dank, too dark, so he lights wee twigs with a small hot spark. The coals pip pop and wind doesn't stop, but the bear snores on. 2 glowing eyes sneak peek in the den. Mouse cries, "Who's there?" And a hare hops in. "Ho, Mouse," says Hare, "long time no see." So they pop white corn and they brew black tea. Mouse sips, wee slurps, Hare burps, big burps. But the bear snores on. A badger scuttles by, sniffs, snuffs at the air. "I smell yummy yums, perhaps we can share." "I've brought honey nuts," Badger says with a grin. "Let's divvy them up, cozy down, and dig in." And they nibble and they munch with a chew, chomp, crunch. But the bear snores on. A gopher and a mole tunnel up through the floor. Then a wren and a raven flutter in through the door. Mole mutters, "What a night! What a storm!" twitters Wern, and everybody clatters in the great bear's den. They tweet and they titter, they chat and they chitter, but the bear snores on. In a cave in the woods, a slumbering bear sleeps through the party in his very own lair. Hare strokes the fire, Mouse seasons the stew. Then a small pepper flock makes the bear chew. He blows and he sneezes, and the whole crowd freezes. And the bear wakes up. Bear gnarls and he snarls, bear roars and he rumbles, bear jumps and he stomps, bear growls and he grumbles. You've snuck in my lair and you've had all fun, but me, I was sleeping and I've had none. And he whimpers and he moans and he wails and he groans, and the bear blubbers on. Mouse squeaks, "Don't fret, don't fuss, look, see, we can pop more corn, we can brew more tea." Bear gulps, bear gobbles, he sighs with delight. Then he spins tall tales through the blustery night. When the sun peeks up on a crisp, clear dawn, bear can't sleep. But his friends snore on. The end. So in our story, Bear was sleeping in the winter time. What does it mean when a bear is sleeping for long periods of time in the winter? Right, it means he's hibernating. Good job, guys. Okay, so Bear was sleeping. Now, his friends, what were they doing? They weren't sleeping or hibernating. What were they doing? Right, so they were running around. They were looking for places to eat their food. They had popcorn and they had tea. So the other animals were looking for a quiet, dry place to get out of the snow. Now, bears like to sleep in quiet and dark dens or caves. Sometimes they will dig a deep hole underneath a tree stump, or they find a cave. So we are going to get to make our own bear caves. So you're just going to need a few supplies to do this. And then you get to make your stuffed animal or even a toy their own bear cave. So we are gonna get to make our very own bear dens. So it's gonna look like this. It's gonna have some snow around the outsides, and it's a nice little place for your toy bear, or even just any toy. It can hibernate, and it can take a long rest, especially in the winter. All right, so I'm gonna grab a few supplies, and then we can get started. All right, so now we're gonna get to make our at-home activity, which is our bear den. So the bears are in a den because they are, they are sleeping, which is hibernation. Good job, guys. Okay, so if you would like to find the materials and directions for our at-home activity, you are gonna go to Learning at Home at WQLN.org. Okay, so there are a few things that we're gonna need. So the first thing you need to find is a small empty box. It could be a tissue box or even a Cheez-It food box. It could be anything. I also even have the little cakes. It can be whatever you can find. Okay, so before you go and find a box and just start emptying whatever's in it, make sure you ask a grown-up if you can use your box. All right, so you also are gonna need glue, cotton balls, and scissors. There is an extra piece of material that you can use. If you don't have it, it's totally fine. Your bear den is still gonna look amazing. You are gonna need just some extra fabric if you have it. This is to add a cozy little bed at the bottom of your bear den. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we are gonna make sure that our animal or our toy can fit into our bear den. So if not, you are gonna need to grab your scissors and ask your grown-up for supervision to cut a hole that your animal can fit in. Now, if you have a food box, it probably has these little flaps. Now, we personally don't need the flaps to make our bear den, so all you have to do is cut them off. If you want to leave the flaps on as like a door to your cave, you totally can, but usually bears don't have a door to their cave. But if you want your bear to have a door, you can totally leave it. That is totally fine. All right, so when you get them all cut off, it should look something like this. There's no flaps anymore. Okay, so now we are going to glue our cotton balls to our bear dens. So I am gonna use my tissue box, and I'm gonna grab my glue and put a layer of glue at the top of my box. So you can see I put some glue at the top. Now I'm gonna grab a cotton ball and I'm going to pull my cotton ball. That way it kind of looks kind of like long, and I'm going to put it on top of my glue. All right, so it should look something like this. Now you're gonna take your glue again, and you're gonna put a layer at the bottom of your cave. So remember, I'm gonna pull out my cotton balls so that all of my bear cave is snowy. And then if you don't have any extra piece of fabric, you can just stick your toy or stick your bear in your bear den and they can hibernate. But if you do have an extra piece of fabric, I want you to use your scissors and cut out a small piece of fabric that is going to fit inside of your bear den. All right, so I'm going to cut out a small piece. So it should look something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then all you have to do is stick your fabric at the bottom, and he has a nice little cozy blanket bed. All right, now before you start sticking your animals or your toys into your den, make sure you let your cotton ball snow dry because you might rip it off. I hope you liked that at-home activity. Now let's just recap our lesson real quick. So we got to talk about bears today, but more specifically, we observed or we saw why bears hibernate. Hibernate or hibernation was a common word we used throughout our whole entire lesson. What does hibernation mean? I want you to tell me in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. It is long periods of sleep throughout the winter. Awesome job, guys. All right, so I want you to keep reading, keep learning, and keep watching WQLN PBS, where learning is brought to life.